Hey everyone, Stegar here, and welcome to my autumn city of Fairview. In this episode we're going to be working on some more residential along this hill here where I'm building this road, and then we'll work on a park as well, and work our way down to the shoreline, and there I'll be building a beach later in the episode, and adding some buildings there, and then we'll come back to that in the next episode. Right now I'm just working on this hill and adding in a few houses here along this cul-de-sac, or around this street first, and then I'll add some on the cul-de-sac afterwards. Here I'm basically doing a similar technique to what I did in the previous episode, where I'm using mainly the American Eclectic theme houses and some European Suburbia ones from the European Suburbia Content Creator Pack, and basically just plopping them down on the hill. I think along here, there's a lot of terrain differences, so I'm trying to kind of mask that a bit with these concrete walls and basically create something that looks a bit more bearable than what the vanilla cliffs are. I end up changing the cliff textures later in this episode because I downloaded the theme mixer mod, so was taking advantage of that and using it to change the textures and things, both for the cliff and to find a decent sand texture when I do build the beach. When I downloaded the theme mixer mod, I was downloading the original one because when I was recording this, theme mixer 2 hadn't been released yet. I think it came out like a week after this episode was recorded, which was in like October or something. So here I'm just placing down some fences around these houses and just trying to, I think it adds a lot of detail without like plopping down heaps of props and things. And then I just like to add at least 2 trees in each lot just to kind of add some more detail. Like, it takes up heaps of space, so you don't really need much else in the lots. And using a variety of trees, I like to add a few like pine trees too, since they're evergreen and it just adds a bit of colour to the city as well. And here I was building a park and have labelled all the trees in Find It so that I can just use the ones that I want to and not have to scroll through heaps of trees. In a couple of episodes time I ended up making a forest brush, which made it even faster because I didn't have to click through all the individual trees. I'd just get given a random one and could place it down. But I'm getting ahead of myself because that doesn't happen for a while. And here I really like these apartments. I've used them before closer to the centre of the city, and I just wanted to basically put them all along here and create some sort of modern development. And I used building anarchy so that they don't flatten all the terrain around them and just clip into the terrain, which is nice because at the back of those buildings I don't really see the need for any windows and things. Someone can probably argue that they don't get many windows and all that, but I mean, it's okay. You gotta basically use what land you have. And this area up the top here I haven't really touched since episode 5, but was just finishing along the other side of the street and building on top of the hill. And a similar detailing as well here. And now's probably a good opportunity to talk about what I was talking about in the last episode, which is the potential for a map making series on my channel. And I've recorded a fair bit of map making on my laptop because that's all I have to use at the moment since I am just away and have my laptop. So I've recorded a fair bit of that, which I think should make for a few episodes. But that means that I'll be able to continue uploading weekly for the next few weeks at least. And I'll reassess that in a couple of weeks' time as to whether I continue doing that while I don't have my desktop, because I'm fairly limited to what I can do in terms of City Skylines stuff if I have a laptop that's only got a 1 gig graphics card and 8 gigs of RAM, because you really need 16 gigs to do the detailing like I'm doing in this game, which my desktop has. And also the graphics card in my laptop isn't that great, so the graphics don't look nearly as great because I can't crank the settings up as high. Anyways, I was just adding some trees along here, and I think this is about the time that the textures change to this lighter theme, which is a lot nicer to look at, I think. And you can see that the cliff textures have also changed. And here I'm basically building a massive park because I just decided that this hill was too steep to build on, and a park is a good way to fill it in. And just adding some tennis courts and things for that new development there, because I feel like it'd be kind of a wealthy place to live, or maybe some sort of retirement facility thing, you know, where people go when they sell their 4-bedroom house or whatever and want to downsize. And just placing this wall down here to try and cover up the cliff, because even though it does look a bit better, I don't want it everywhere. And mixing up the trees again as well. In the following episode, I tried, this is kind of changing the subject because I'm really stuck on what to say otherwise, but in the coming episode I tested out the Network Rivers by Matt Welshman, as they'd just come out when I was recording this in late October or whenever it was. And I was thinking of doing a tutorial on that if there's enough interest, so I'd really like for you to leave a comment and tell me whether you'd be interested in that, because I can put something together on my laptop and it shouldn't be too much of a problem, since it doesn't really require much extra assets and things. And I've tested it out a fair bit in Fairview in some future episodes, and you'll see that when we get to them in a couple of weeks' time. Here I was building the kind of on the beach, the beginning of the beach area, and I wanted a staircase to go down to the beach from this cliff because it's quite high up, and use these stairs to create what I wanted. And it took a bit of effort and was quite fiddly. I cut a fair bit of some of the stuff out, and you can see here that I was kind of struggling a bit. But I eventually got there in the end, and I'll be putting some walls around here just now, and also using procedural objects to kind of fill in the bits where I couldn't really get this concrete wall to work quite right with the bits sticking out. I mean, I could have just used procedural objects on the stairs themselves, but it ended up looking okay along the edge when I did put the wall in, so I kept it, and you'll see that in the cinematics at the end of the video. And here's me fiddling around with procedural objects and putting these retaining walls on an angle so that they kind of achieve what I wanted here, because I didn't want them to just be straight up and down. And I wanted a bit of an angle here, and you can see that it changes as you go further down. I forgot to mention earlier when I was doing the road layouts, but I've now changed to more of a curvy road system than just plain grids, as we're kind of moving into the edge of the city, and since it would have been built more recently, whoever was planning the city would have chosen to have curvy roads that have different sight, like you can't just see straight down them for a mile, you can only see a couple of 100 meters in front of you before it kind of disappears off to the side. And that's just basically because it's a newer part of the city, and that is generally how city layouts are nowadays. There's probably some exceptions to that, but that's generally the thing that I was going for here. And also working with a hill, it kind of doesn't make sense to use grids all the time, as these hillsides were quite steep, and that kind of presented its own problems in trying to keep with the realism, because roads generally only go too steep except for in very extreme circumstances that you require roads that are like 1 in 3 or something, which is like the steepest road in the world or something. But anyways, here I was finishing off this park. Now that I'd got the area around it finished off, I knew where everything would need to go, and just plopping down trees and things. And then we're going to move over to the beach side and put down some buildings and things along there, and I'll talk more about that when we get to it soon. So here I was using the strip mall assets by Spence and just creating something along the side of the road here that people could stop off and shop at if they're visiting the beach. I guess they could just sell general things, and it also serves this suburb area as well, since in the scheme of things it's a fair distance away from the centre of the city, and you need stuff here. And also placing down that other shop and a few houses along the beachside that look out onto the ocean, and I imagine that these would be highly contested real estate and fairly expensive in Fairview terms, which probably isn't that much, as it's just a small city that serves its purpose as a city, I guess, for people to live in. And here I was using these piers by Ronix. I kind of had some trouble with them flattening the terrain underneath, but I think I mostly worked that out. There might be 1 or 2 bits showing up in the cinematics, but I think I fixed most of it. And just basically needed to redraw the networks that connect to the pier buildings to try and fix that. It took a bit of kind of trial and error to get that right, but I think I did in the end. And more fences around these houses too, to keep them separate, and just more houses in general here because I can, I guess. There's actually not much public beach space over here. It's mainly in front of that cliff that we were working on before, and there's a little access way beside some of those houses, as well as down the staircase that I was building before. Here are some more modern apartment buildings. They're from the same creator as the ones I was using earlier in the episode up on that hill. I think it's Ali Targs. I could be getting the pronunciation of that wrong, but I kind of was drawn to these because they're modelled off buildings in Auckland, New Zealand, and being from New Zealand myself, I was kind of jumped to any New Zealand assets that there are in the workshop and try and find a way that I can use them if they're decent quality. And another house out the front, and this is actually kind of hard to watch because it's lagging in my video editor, but that doesn't matter too much because hopefully it's playing alright for you on YouTube. And soon we're going to move over to what is essentially the third part of the episode, after we add some little details on the beach here to just finish it off, touch it up. But we're going to work on some farms, and this I kind of wanted to fill out next to the golf course in between where we've been building so far. I didn't really do a very good job at the beginning of the episode trying to tell you where we're actually building today, but it has been kind of off from the golf course that we built in the previous episode, and kind of off to the side of that as well, and beside the other suburbs around the area, but now we're building out some farmland as it's kind of on the edge of the city, and I do want to have a ring of farmland around the city before it goes into the trees in the background, I guess. I honestly don't have the patience to like build farms everywhere on the map, but just around the city should be enough for it to look good in future cinematic shots. So that's kind of what I'm doing here, and also just kind of trying to create areas that could be built on. And there's one area here that I'm working on now that does get some houses in it, and I was just basically deciding how to do that and working with the restriction of having a fixed plot of land that had to be subdivided up. And now we're actually getting on to building some houses. I also plopped down some cows in those fields. I probably went a bit overboard and some more fields should be empty, as I've kind of been looking around now that I'm in the country for a bit, and there's honestly more empty fields than there is occupied fields, as you kind of need to rotate stock around and stuff. But that should be an easy fix of just selecting those little buildings that have the cows in them and deleting them. Yeah, here is kind of a steep place, so I was trying to fill it up with a lot of trees, and just in general trying to hide everything. But we're almost at the end of the episode. I haven't really mentioned this much, but you can, as well as liking the video, you can follow me on Twitter and like my Facebook page as well. There's links in the description. If you're new to my channel, then subscribe for more. I'll be posting weekly for the next few weeks at least. And thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.